Hello again, sir. So one of the things that I wanted to show you along with the drilling was how to actually run the blade across the segmented piece, especially when you have 30, 45, 60 degree angles and things like that. But first, I realized that in the last video where I was showing you how to drill, I had said it's not a marathon, it is a race. What I meant to say was it's not a marathon, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I feel much better that I've corrected that, and that's out on the table, so we don't have to talk about that elephant in the room anymore. So my recommendation, until you get it round, this was pretty round, this was that olive blank, I would stay away from things like a diamond bit where you can catch, or a square, a radius square, maybe. I would probably just go with your round for now, until you get it to a decent diameter, where it's smooth and you kind of always have to worry about catches, but not as bad with the corners gone. So what I'm going to do for this, just to show you, is I'm going to use the my square carbide. And you know what? I'm assuming that you have carbide tools. I will show you two. So I'm going to start with the square carbide. And essentially what I'm going to do is, instead of going like this and flat, I hope you can see that pretty good, and digging in and, hang on. So we're going to go back up to speed now because I still have the drill. I still have the lathe on from when I was drilling. The pieces here, right, as you have your flat one and that comes down, you have the possibility of a catch. I don't know how many different types of wood you've done at this point, or resins or hybrids, but when you do and just fast forward this if you have, but when you're doing a hybrid where the resin meets the wood, there's a significant density difference between the two. So if I'm going in and I'm pushing pretty hard, say on the resin part, and then I get to that transition and I'm using the same pressure, inward pressure, you potentially catch. And obviously in a blank that's wood, it's not horrible, a non-segmented blank. But eventually you get the feel for it to wherever that transition or that pivot point is, you're going to either relieve pressure or push more in, more inward pressure to get past that point so that it's all smoothed out. This, you don't ever really want to have it at the same angle as the segment because there's always potential for catch. And to go back to the resin wood story, the aluminum is much harder, much denser than the wood, much more dense than the wood, or like say a piece of resin. So that's going to almost protrude the entire time. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in at almost a 30-degree angle or more, it depends. You kind of almost want to match the angle of whatever piece you're doing, but close enough is still good. So historically what I'll do with a segmented blank is, as I come in, I'll drag almost like a scraper, but at that angle. And what that does is it I can't form my friggin' words tonight. It doesn't allow the catches to happen because you're at the same angle as the segmented piece. So let me show you. It doesn't sound good. Come in. basically, I held it at that angle the entire distance the whole way, same amount of pressure. Typically what I do is I put my finger here, rest it, come in, and then that's, if I'm pinching, that gives me the same distance across the whole thing, across the whole piece, because my finger is riding on the side of the tool rest. I really don't like that sound. I don't know what the hell happened. So another tool, let's say that you don't have carbide. You can use something like this. Sort of like a scraper kind of tool. What I wouldn't use is your skews. Parting tool. Okay, so we're gonna go with the bowl gouge. This is a 3/4, and kind of the same concept, right? So instead of this, I'm gonna kind of do that. Really light cuts, especially as you get thinner. The thinner you get, the more you should be puckering. I am by no means a master wood turner. But I've done this enough times, and I know that that false confidence you get going from, a blank that starts at anywhere from 1 inch to 3/4, even 5/8, getting that all the way down to within 1/8 or 3/16 worth of material left, you get a little bit cocky, I guess we'll say. With a segmented piece, you want to make sure you fight that off. Because the first time you go dig and think, well, I've made it with pretty decent cuts this whole time, and you go in, that's the one time it's going to catch and it's going to explode on you. And you have less material to fight back as you get down to the thinner portions. So anyway, those are the two things I wanted to tell you, that I screwed up on the sentence before, and that that's how I would recommend you run a segmented blank in the future. So there you have it. I'm going to go find out what that noise was now.